Welcome to week 1 of Kindergarten Countdown Camp Virtual Edition. We'd like to welcome you to the virtual Kindergarten Countdown Camp, you and your family and your rising kindergarten students. We're so excited to have you. My name is Janine Mowbray, and I am Director of Community Impact for United Way of Greater Richmond in Petersburg. We started Kindergarten Countdown Camp last summer with just about 20 students, and we're so excited that through this virtual option, we're able to serve even more students this summer.
Hello, my name is Tia Wilson, and I will be one of the teachers throughout Kindergarten Countdown Camp, and I am currently a teacher at Sutherland Elementary School. I've been teaching for 18 years. 8 of those years were spent in 4th grade. Loved 4th grade, but then I was ready for a change and was moved to kindergarten and absolutely love kindergarten. So I've been in kindergarten for 10 years now.
Hello, my name is Tiara Crockett. I am the other kindergarten teacher for Kindergarten Countdown Camp. I have been teaching just finished my 12th year. My first year was in 2nd grade, and we moved to a bigger school, and I got put in kindergarten, and I hope I never, ever, ever leave it. Oh, and I'm at Southside Elementary School.
Awesome. So you'll get to see our beautiful faces each week, and feel free to contact us via Remind app, or if you want to send us the email, if you have any questions about any of the content that you have, we are your go-to people. And so the topics that we'll cover in this session will be, we'll go over the KCC skills assessment overview so you can kind of gauge where your child is as it relates to the kindergarten readiness skills that we'll be reviewing through this virtual program. We'll also talk about scissors because you will be surprised to see the many ways that kids can create their own ways that they can use scissors. We'll review letters, how to write, how your child can write their name, book familiarity, and numbers. So before we get started, there are a few logistics. I first want to remind you that if you have not signed up to be a part of our Remind Messenger app, this is the perfect time to do that. We will use the Remind messaging app to give you, we'll send out like the live Zoom link so you don't have to go through your email or anything like that. We'll send you tips for your students, and it is a great way to connect with us if you have any questions or concerns. The easiest way to join is if you text at NADA38 to the number 81010, or you could use the link to join, and this link has been sent to you via email as well. The second thing we want to talk about are the weekly video lessons. And so each week, every Monday, the videos will be live on the United Way website, and we will also send you that link via Remind and email to make it easier for you. And finally, the part that I'm most excited about is our live Zoom calls. And so our live sessions will be a Q&A style, and we'll have some activities where you can invite your students to join us for a few moments. And those will take place on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. and Thursday at 7 p.m. And it will happen weekly for the remainder of the program. So to begin, I want to start off with the readiness skills overview, and you'll find this in your packet on the in your folder on the left side. And we really want to encourage all parents to take a few moments to assess where their students are as it relates to their kindergarten readiness. So when you open up your packet, on the left side, the first skill that we'll review are shapes. So are they able to identify shapes? The square, circle, oval, rectangle, triangle. And when you look at the bottom of the page, so this area down here, you're going to focus on the beginning. So you'll assess your child at the beginning, and then you'll assess them at the end. And you'll see that there are a few different levels that your child may fall in. They may be proficient, and they may know all the shapes. In progress is where we like to see kids for all of the skills as they begin kindergarten. That is the level that we hope that they are at. but they may not be there, and that's okay as well. And so there's beginning, where they may be able to identify 1 or 2 shapes, or not yet started, where they're not able to identify any of the shapes. And so what you'll do is you'll say, find the square, find the circle, find the oval, find the triangle. And so you'll ask them to point to it. And for all of these skills, I want to remind you that what you want to do is not to put a big X, if they got it wrong, or a big check if they got it right. Try to do something that's kind of like inconspicuous. So you might put like a little dot next to the triangle if they got it right. So here's an example. So you might just put like a little dot right there next to the oval if they got it right. Same for the color. So you're going to ask them, can you find the color red? And then they would point to red. Ask them if they can find pink, and they would point to pink. And so you would follow that same idea. All right, and so next you have inside of your backpack alphabet cards. And so what you're going to do is follow the directions on this page, which says hold the alphabet flashcards face down and have your child randomly select 5 cards. And then you're going to, they don't have to be face down, just have your child select 5 cards and then write those letters down inside of the boxes over here. And so the same idea is you'll ask them to identify this letter. And if they get it right, you might want to put a little dot on that letter so you can go back and see how many of those letters of the 5 did they get correct. Make sure that you mark proficient if they've identified 5 or more, in progress if they identify 3 to 4 letters, beginning if they've identified 1 or 2 of those letters, and not yet started if they've identified if they weren't able to identify any of the letters. And you'll do the same thing at the end of this program. Next, you want to ask your child if they can write their first name. And so you'll write the date and then have them to write their name. And then what you'll see is how did they do? So proficient, name is fully written and legible. In progress, almost able to write their name. Beginning, only able to write the first few letters. And not yet started if they're not able to write any letters from their name. All right, so next is counting. So you're going to ask your child to count the objects. So for example, you might ask them to count how many apples there are, and then you're going to ask them, and then you're going to ask them to identify the number 2. So they need to be able to see that there are 2 apples and that what the number 2 looks like. If they're not able to do both of those, then you cannot give them credit for that. And so you'll just move on all the way through the number 10. And same here, proficient, identify all objects and numbers. In progress, identify 6 to 9. Beginning, identify 1 through 5. Not yet started, they have identified 0 objects and numbers. And finally, we'll talk more about book familiarity a little bit later in this video. But book familiarity is basically, you're handing your child a book the wrong way, wrong side up, and making sure that they're able to hold the book properly. And there are a few questions you're going to ask them. What do you think books are used for? Where's the front of the book? Where's the back of the book? And proficient is they answer all 3 questions correctly. In progress, they answer 2 out of the 3 questions correctly. Beginning, they answer 1 of the 3 questions correctly, and not yet started, they don't answer any of the questions correctly. And you also want to see how they're holding the book as well. Next, we have rhyming words. And so you're going to ask your child, for example, fun rhymes with run. Does sun? So they should be able to see that fun, run, sun rhymes together, versus mad rhymes with bat. Does dog? So bat, cat, bat, dog. They should be able to see that there's a pattern, and that there is not a pattern, because dog does not rhyme with cat, or bat. And same with this, proficient, answer all 3 questions correctly. In progress, answers only 2 questions correctly. Beginning, they answer only 1 question correctly. Not yet started, doesn't answer any of the questions correctly. And next, we have our fine motor skills. And so that is where you're going to see how your child uses, how do they use scissors, and can they correctly cut on the line. Proficient is they can hold scissors properly and follow the line. In progress, they can hold scissors properly and does not go, they go off pattern slightly, but follows the line pretty closely. Beginning, they can hold scissors properly, but cannot follow the line. And then not yet is they can't hold the scissors properly and they do not cut. And so here's an example of what that page will look like at the very end. And so we'll ask them to cut on that line. All right. And so that is the readiness skills overview. And so that will be a great way to just to gauge where your child is on those skills that we'll be covering this summer. So we can also monitor and see how they progress this summer.
Okay, inside of your child's backpack, you will find several packets with lesson plans that look like these attached to the top. Each week, this top page will give you tips and activities to cover each skill. It's not necessary for you to complete every activity during the course of the week. You can feel free to revisit skills as needed throughout the summer. If you want an easier way to check out the links on some of the lesson plans, like for lesson 1, there's some links under letters. You can visit the United Way Kindergarten Countdown Camp website, where you'll find clickable links in the lesson PDF. And you'll also receive these links in your weekly email.
All right, using scissors safely. That is an important part of kindergarten. Scissors are used a lot in kindergarten to help build fine motor skills, to help stay on the line, to follow the line. It helps build their fine motor coordination, along with using pencils. That works with their fine motor skills. So a fun song that you can use to teach your child how to use scissors is, if you click on the next page, okay, holding scissors, thumb on top, open and close, thumb on top, thumb on top. So teach your child that song, have fun with it, make sure that their thumb is on top and not turned upside down. A lot of students like to try to cut this way and their elbow sticks out like this. So I've got a neat trick for that as well that I'm going to teach you in just a minute. But keep that thumb on top this way and practice opening and closing, opening and closing. And you'll have to teach them too how to hold the paper with one hand and to stay on the line with the other hand and safely follow the line. Okay? And then the next thing I want to show you are the rules for using scissors. As you can see on the screen there, the things we do with scissors is we only use them to cut paper, not our hair, like the little boy to the side has done. You can say, don't play with your scissors. We use them to cut paper and to learn with. To safely hand over scissors, show your child how to hold the point to keep it safe and to hand it to the next person. We don't run with scissors. A lot of times we try to use our scissors at our desks, but there are occasions where we will need to move to another area of the room for some group work or so forth. And so we carefully hold them like this and we walk to the next point to use our scissors. And so now for the trick. On the next slide, you will see an OT trick, which OT stands for occupational therapy. An occupational therapist is very knowledgeable in fine motor skills. And so one of the occupational therapists I keep track of on Facebook and on internet, she has come up with a trick on how to keep your child's elbow down And that way their thumb will stay on top, because it's really uncomfortable to hold your scissors this way if your elbow is down. They usually hold their elbow out when they're doing it the wrong way. So when you're to keep your elbow down, take a folder or even a piece of paper of some sort and stick that under your child's arm and say, okay, now let's try to cut the paper with our elbow down. Don't let that paper fall. And that should help your child learn to keep the thumb up on top. Okay.
What's in a name? One of the most important words that your child will learn to write and recognize is their name. But before they even practice writing, focus on recognition and letter order. One of the ways we've done this before in kinder is with name puzzles. You can use the index cards provided or any other type of paper to make a puzzle with each letter of your child's name on one piece. Help them to practice spelling and arranging the letters to make their name until they're comfortable doing it with no help. When they are ready to write, there are several ways that you can help them to be successful. If they are not yet used to writing letters, you may want to practice some pencil control first by helping them to trace the scissor cutting activities that were provided in your packet. You can guide their hands focusing on one letter at a time, or you can use a highlighter or marker to demonstrate and have them trace over it. I prefer using highlighter or marker as opposed to dashes for tracing because I find it easier for students that may not understand exactly how to connect the dashes to actually see the letter that they're writing. It's a personal preference though, so you can use whichever method works best for your child. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see what's called a name pyramid. This activity encourages learners to move from dependence on tracing letters to writing their name independently. As you can see, the child would practice tracing their whole first name at the top of the paper. And then as they continue down the pyramid, it requires them to write more letters on their own until they're finally writing their entire name by themselves. It's important to note that you should practice using your child's first name. I know that some kindergartners have nicknames, and that's fine. But for example, if William's nickname is Bobby, you should practice writing William. The kindergarten teachers have to teach him to write his actual first name. In all of the activities you do, remember to use appropriate case. It's important that students learn to write their names using only one capital letter at the beginning of their name and the rest lowercase, unless your child's name has an exception. Remember that practice makes perfect, and try to practice recognizing and writing your child's name at least once a day in their notebook.
All right, recognition of letters. That's an important part of learning to read. The more letters and sounds a child can recognize at an early age has proven to boost reading readiness skills. So this week we're going to focus on the letters A through E. You have some flashcards inside your child's backpack that you can use to practice recognizing the letter and the sound. So when you hold up your flashcard, you can ask your child, what letter is this? They can say it is A. What sound does A make? A says ah. Now you can recognize here that my A is a fancy A. So I like to tell my students that sometimes we will see fancy A's. Sometimes we will see our regular A that we should be making in kindergarten. We make our A's like this, circle and stick. So make sure that you also are practicing finding letters in books. As you read a book to your child and you can see a fancy A, find me a fancy A. Or if you see the A's like we recognize in kindergarten, let's find that A. Also in your packet, you will see a poster like on the screen here. And it looks like this. So yours is in color. And these will help your child remember the sounds. It has pictures to go with them, and I'm going to teach you which motion to do with your child for A through E right now. So A, you can see the little boy, he has his hands over his cheeks. Ah. A says ah. A says ah. B says B, like a music conductor. B. C says K. K. you're cold. D, a drum. D says D, D. And E says eh, eh, like you didn't quite hear somebody. Eh. So that's a fun way to work with sounds with your child. There's also a video link in your packet up under week 1 that has a video that goes with this poster as well. It will tell you all of the letters and sounds. A says A, B says B, and so on. All right, on the next slide, you will see that we're going to also work on letter formations this week. So practice forming the letters A through E with materials in your book bag, such as Play-Doh and pipe cleaners. Those are two ways to make it more fun than always writing letters with paper and pencil. You can also do the paper and pencil too, because your child definitely needs to work on letter formation and holding a pencil correctly. But to make it fun for this week, let's use some Play-Doh and let's use those pipe cleaners. Be sure to use, to have your child do both the uppercase and the lowercase letters. Have your child say, form the letter D, an uppercase D. Now let's do lowercase d so that they're matching. This is the uppercase, this is the lowercase, they go together. They are the same letter. And with the pipe cleaners, that is just another fun way to practice forming the letters, wrapping those pipe cleaners around. You can use more than one color if you would like as well. Have fun with it.
All right, numbers everywhere. Numbers are a big part of kindergarten math time. One of the easiest ways to help your child to be successful is to practice counting daily. You don't always have to have objects to count, and we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. But while you're in the car, walking through the store, in between commercials of your favorite show, take the opportunity to count. Try to reach the number 20 every day. Teen numbers can be tricky. My own future K kid still skips around some when she gets to them. So if your child cannot reach 20 yet, it's okay. Just keep practicing. Have them repeat after you. You could even get creative and turn it into a song. This week, our focus is on identifying numbers. Place the number flashcards in front of your child in order. Practice pointing to and saying each number. Once they can do this on their own, mix the number cards up and challenge your child to fix them back. Remember to go at your child's pace. If they are not yet recognizing a lot of numbers, it's okay to take it slow. You can start with 1 through 5, and once they're successful and confident with those, introduce 6 through 10, and so on. The end goal is to have your future kindergartner be able to identify the numbers when they are presented out of order. If you want to spice it up with some number sense, you can stack blocks or small items next to the number cards. This will help your child to visualize the quantity that relates to the numbers that you're showing them, as you can see in the picture below.
All right, now let's learn about books. Reading aloud to your child is the best way to prepare him or her for kindergarten. Reading a book to your child every day will boost their language development and start to build a love for learning. So you have 4 or 5 books inside your backpack for the next few weeks. So pick a book this week, any of them your choice, and hand that book to them backwards, upside down, and see if they can turn it correctly to be ready to read with you. Okay, and then after that you can practice identifying the parts of a book. This is the front cover, this is the back cover, this is the spine. The front cover has my title, and so does the title page. This is the title page. Right? Once they know the parts of the book, then you can talk about the author and the illustrator. The author and the illustrator's names are usually found on the front of the book or on the title page. In my case, Scholastic. So we're going to say Walt Disney is the author of this book. What did Walt Disney do? He wrote the words. He is the author. The author writes the words. And I actually have a little song for that. The author writes the words. The author writes the words. Hi ho, now I know the author writes the words. And then you can talk about the illustrator. What does the illustrator do? Sometimes the illustrator can be the same as the author, the same person. Sometimes they are different people. So the illustrator draws the pictures. These are pictures. That is what the illustrator did. And the illustrator song is the same as the author. The illustrator draws the pictures. The illustrator draws the pictures. Hi ho, now I know the illustrator draws the pictures. I'm sorry you had to listen to my singing this today. But have fun reading books with your child this week. On the next slide, you will see, let's practice some classroom expectations with books. So if your child's been to preschool, then he or she may have already had the experience sitting on the carpet and listening to the teacher read a book. In this case, ask your child what those rules and expectations are. How do you sit when your teacher is reading a book to you? What are you supposed to do with your hands and your feet? If your child has not been to preschool, then let's start showing him or her what the teacher will expect. So it's always fun to snuggle up with a good book with your child. But for this week, maybe 1 or 2 times that you're reading books this week, have your child sit in front of you on the floor and hold your book facing your child like this to read to them, just like this. And make sure that your child can focus on the reader, what you're doing up here, and not maybe what's going on all around him or her. Also have your child practice doing what we call crisscross applesauce, hands in the pot. That's just hands in your lap and not on other people. So those are just some classroom expectations that kindergarten teachers have when we are reading books with them, so that we have all of those 20 lovely students focused on what the teacher is doing. So again, have fun reading books this week with your child.
So we hope that you have found the topics that we've covered thus far this week to be very valuable for you. And we also want to remind and invite you to our live Zoom chat question and answer. So if there's any questions that you may have about anything that was covered this week, we ask that you bring those questions to our live Zoom chat at 10 a.m. on Tuesday and 7 p.m. on Thursday. We're also going to have a special guest from Smart Beginnings Southeast, and they really focus on kindergarten readiness. And so they will be available to discuss some of the content that's inside of your backpack. So you may have seen these little booklets that are on the ring. They will be talking about how you can turn an everyday experience into a learning experience for your rising kindergarten student. And also next week, the topics that we will cover are colors, letters, numbers, shapes, and we'll review some of the content that we discussed this week. Anything that I'm missing, Tia or Tiara?
No, I think that's good.
All right, well, we hope that you enjoyed our first video, and we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday and Thursday, and also for our second week in a couple of days. All right, take care.